It's Afghanistan's national game. And one of the oldest sports in the world. It's called Buzkashi. Buzkashi is a brutal, ferocious struggle between men on horseback, endeavouring to ride around an unmarked area holding onto a calf's carcass. Its unwritten rules are seldom observed. For many, this game is a reflection of the violence and power struggles that have marked Afghanistan for centuries. It was March 2008 when we travelled to Afghanistan. The country had been regularly in the news following the overthrow of the Taliban in 2001 and the increasing incidents of suicide bombings that had taken place here. Each March, the Persian New Year festival of Nowruz is celebrated to mark the beginning of spring. As part of that year's festivities in Mazar-i-Sharif in the north of the country, the Jahenda Bala ceremony was performed at the Holy Blue Mosque by raising a special banner on the first day of the new year. On this occasion, word got out that a disabled man had been miraculously cured after touching the banner. It caused a near riot as people tried to touch the banner for themselves. We headed to Mazar-i-Sharif to meet up with Buzkashi champion Muhammad Halim Palawan. His father was a wrestler and his grandfather a master Buzkashi player, a chapandaz. However, Halim was unable to make a living from the sport, so he drove a taxi. Chapandazes are legendary figures in Afghan society. They possess great horsemanship skills and are known for their physical strength and fearlessness. In Buzkashi, experience is vital, and many enthusiasts of the game maintain that the best chapandazes are over the age of 40. They play for high stakes and take the game very seriously. It's not uncommon for riders to continue with cracked ribs, broken limbs, and various head injuries.
I've taken part in many games, and it's clear to me that the horse is a very clever and kind animal. In one game, there were between 500 and 1,000 horses on the pitch, and at one point I fell off my horse and another one put its hoof on my stomach. When he realized that it was a human underneath him, he jumped away. I was very scared and stood up to see what had happened to me, and I was amazed to find that I wasn't hurt.
A player should always continue playing. If he's injured and the wound is serious, then he'll be given an injection to temporarily numb the area of the wound so that he can continue playing.
Abdul Salam was a wealthy businessman whose passion was Buzkashi. He owned a stable and several horses, all male studs, bred especially for the sport. The measure of his success could be witnessed by the number of animal pelts hanging from the ceiling, trophies from past wins. The horses, which can cost around $5,000, are considered just as important as the riders, if not more so. There's an Afghan saying, heard at all Buzkashi events, better a poor rider on a good horse than a good rider on a poor horse.
It doesn't matter what size a horse is, whether it's big or small. A good, fast, small horse can do the job of a big horse. The large horse is for big games, where there are lots of horses, because its size can be useful. And also when you need to pick up the calf, you need a sturdy, strong beast.
A few days prior to a game, a Buzkashi horse is taken for long rides to ensure that it's physically at its peak and ready for the melee. Buzkashi is traditionally played during the winter and early spring. During the late spring and summer, when the weather is too hot to play, the horses are allowed to graze quietly. Traditionally, a game of Buzkashi would last 3 to 4 days and would be played in honor of the king. It's thought that hundreds of years ago, the horsemen would play with the bodies of their slain enemies. In more recent times, Taliban rule had meant that Buzkashi was all but lost as a tradition. Horses specially bred for the game were taken and used for military purposes instead.
In the time of the Taliban, Buzkashi still existed, but it was in a terrible state, very weak, and people weren't allowed to attend matches. The sport needed money back then, but many of the wealthy businessmen and rich people had left the country.
Buzkashi literally means goat dragging, but a calf is often used because it's stronger and heavier and therefore able to withstand the punishment of the game. The carcass is soaked in water overnight to toughen the hide. The aim of the game is to grab the carcass and dump it in a designated circle. Players, usually hired by wealthy members of the community to ride their horses, are allowed to whip their mounts as well as opponents in the struggle. The Afghan Olympic Federation has established official rules for Buzkashi, but they're only adhered to in contests in Kabul. At the game in Mazar-e Sharif during Nowruz, there were no boundaries. In the past, games like this had often overflowed onto main roads, where horses mingled with the traffic and pedestrians ran for cover. On this occasion, once the dust had settled, the winner was rewarded with money and goods and the kudos of being a chapandas. Subscribe now to our YouTube channel for the very best of Trans World Sports.